Amir promised a few days ago to finish, and it was quite down. So I hope that tonight, he promised a few times.
That would be too many, but I wanted to do the last one based on what I know.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'll be on his case. Now, obviously, I suggest that you will all do the last one for obvious reasons, and even if you don't submit, because it's stuff that I feel very driven to ask about in the midterm. And so, and if you don't know it, questions that was in the homework, I'll put more. And I think that it's easy, really. OK. We need to go back to approximate a Voronoi diagram and to the well-separated pair decomposition. There is plenty of more material that is exciting and useful over there. But because we need it for the homework, we talked about, I asked about Davenport-Schinzel sequence in the homework, and it's cute and easy, and it would be like kind of a refresher between the heavy material. I thought of talking a bit about DS sequences. So let's talk about DS sequences that would look very far away from geometry, and suddenly it will become very useful for the task that we are struggling with for the whole semester. But I mean, DS sequences are a big world, and we are just, of course, just touching all the parts. So Davenport-Schinzel sequences, after the hardest part is, of course, to know how to pronounce it. And we'll just call them DS sequences. And they're talking about a list of letters, symbols. So here I have a sequence of symbols. E, C, D, A are just symbols. And I wonder how long can this sequence be modulo a few rules that I'll impose on this sequence. So it will be a sequence of symbols or letters or geometric objects, obviously, because we are in CG course. And what are the rules to make a sequence a DS sequence? So the first rule is that I cannot have the same symbol. I mean, it's fine that you'll use the same symbol multiple times. That is completely legit. However, you cannot use the same symbol twice, once after the other. You cannot have E and immediately after that E again. There should be some other letter in between. Otherwise, it's not a DS sequence. And in general, there are the order of the DS sequence. There are different orders of DS sequence, but for the time being, we limit ourselves to no more than 4 alternations. And to define exactly what is alternation is a bit hard, and how do I count it? So we'll just think about it as sequences that cannot have one symbol A. After that, I find B. After that, I find A. And after that, I find B again. ABA is legit. BAB is legit. But AB is not legit. It will not be a DS sequence. ABA is good. AB, we cannot have. Hi, Tim, can you hear me? Tim, if you can. So, OK, thanks. And OK. And in the meantime, it looks very, very abstract. And here is the first example. That's a really boring example of a Davenport-Schinzel sequence. I have a few functions. In this case, these functions are just lines. And I'm looking at the minimization diagram, the lower envelope of all these lines. Remember, for every point x, I'm just looking at what is the first line that I see when I'm looking upward. If I'm below all the lines, what is the first element that I write just above me? And then I'm walking along these segments, and I see that along this sequence, along the lower envelope, and I see that for a while I'm on the function f2, remember, all linear. I'm on f2, then I'm moving to another function f3. So the sequence that I create so far is f2, followed by f3, and then going to f1 over here. And obviously that in this very boring case, since convexity and minimization and lines are lines, I cannot see that f1 comes back to hunt me after that. I cannot see any of these sequences again. So what's the longest length of such a sequence if I use only n function or n symbols? Then the maximum length is n. Not much to discuss about it. The first interesting case is when I'll think about minimization function again. Lower envelope minimization function, you're either going on the x-axis and write who is a function above you, or just walk along the lower envelope directly. That is, lower envelope, I remind you, is all the points that are on one of the functions, but there are no functions below you. Every other function is either with you or above you. That would be the lower envelope. And now I'm walking along the lower envelope. And for a while, I just write the symbol F3. F3, F3, F3. And in this case, if I didn't mention it, all these functions are parabolas. Like I wrote explicitly just a function of f1, which is 3x squared minus 7x minus 7, something. So I'm going over f3 for a while. So the first symbol that I write on my sequence is f3 at this point just below me. That is the one that takes dominance on the minimization diagram will be f2. Comes over here, f2 for a while, and then I come back and another piece of f3. I see f3 again. And then I see f1 that also pops in, and then I see once again f3. So you see f3 might appear multiple times. Okay. So if a symbol might appear n times, as much as I know, does it mean that the complexity like the number of segments, number of vertices on the lower envelope can be n squared if one segment can have, if one function can have n intersections, then could it be n squared or not? So I'll answer this question, but first I want to convince you that if now when I walk down and I write the names of each function that I meet on the lower envelope, that it will be a DS sequence and you cannot have ABAB. It is impossible that I see F3, then F2, then F3 again, then F2 again. So why is this true? Why you cannot have ABAB? Let's assume that for some value of x, a, F3, like here, a, F3 is lower than F2. F3 is lower than F2, and as I progress at some next point, B, after A, FB is F3, F2 is now lower than F3. Now, I'm not saying that there are no functions that appears between F3 and F2. Possibly there are a few other functions that appeared between the F3 that was, but obviously F3 here is below F2 because it's on the lower envelope. Then a lot of action happens, and later I see F2 that appears. And now I just meditate on F2 and F3 and ignoring the whole noise that I didn't show over here in between, and just arguing that between F2, between B, at B, F2 is lower, at A, f3 is lower, somewhere in between, there must be a meeting point. Right? It's two continuous functions. If they switch order, one is below the other. That doesn't help us. If f3 of x and f2 of x, somewhere between, if they changed the order, then there must be an intersection. Yeah. Or if I'll try to be more formal, if I'll write p of x to be f3 minus f2. f3 minus f2. P is polynomial of degree 2, because this is a parabola, higher degree is 2. This is a parabola, the difference between them is also a parabola, and there must be a point x at which this parabola has a root. Already familiar with this term? I know that some schools have different terminology. Root, I mean a value that when I put it in the parabola, it will spit 0. Okay, let's continue. Let's say that there is another alternation. Now again, at this point, who is lower? f3 is again lower than f2, meaning that between the point B, where f2 was lower, and the point C, that f3 was lower, there must be another root of the same function, of the same parabola. Okay, now let's assume so far everything is legit. But if I want to have yet another alternation, that again I will be able to see f2 once again, there should be yet another root. And polynomials of degree 2 have only 2 roots. Yeah. But that's the whole proof. Everybody understands? That is, it doesn't mean, again, that in my sequence, f3 must be followed by the f2 immediately. That's why we have the, when we are writing the no a, b, and b, I'll write it as dot that comes up to say there is bunch of functions here instead of the dot, and there is a bunch of function b, bunch of function a, and bunch of function b again. No matter what it happens, between these events, there must be roots of the same polynomial. Now, of course, it makes sense to ask now if the polynomial of degree 3, they exhibit similar behavior, but not exactly. I can ask similar question about them, and then there could be there can be 5 alternations, but not 6 for the same arguments. And I'll talk about higher order Leverpont-Chinsel later. When you are Googling or wiki about DS sequences, I uniformly call them lambda of n, and in the textbook and wiki, we'll call this type of function lambda of 2 of n. And if it was polynomial of degree 3 or something, then this 2 would be a higher number. Okay, hopefully everybody's cool with what is a DS sequence. You see some geometric example. And now I want to ask, no geometry, not anything, just as a list of symbols. How long can I create a sequence and it will be the and it will obey the no AB, no AB, AB. Okay. I want to ask, you're given n functions, that is n symbols, arrange them anywhere you want. Why can't I write the same symbol once after the other again with nothing in between? Just because, think about the lower envelope. You either see this function or see this function, but all the infinitely many points, the x, that I see the same function above me, it's just the same symbol. I don't separate it. Okay, so I'm using n symbols, like n functions. That's n. Lambda, we said, is a maximum length of a DS sequence that uses n symbols and has no 4 alternation, no ABAB. It's a bit hard to count the number of alternations because it's a bit hard to define if it's 1 alternation or 2. We'll just say no ABAB. Theorem, very easy to prove. The maximum length of such a function is at most 2n minus 1. Lambda of n, no matter how you'll arrange it, as long as you are not using n functions and making sure that you don't have ABAB, the maximum length that you'll get to the whole function, that is the maximum number of segments along such a lower envelope, when I'll write it down, would be at most 2n minus 1. So let's prove it. So here is my sequence with various symbols, sums like A appeared multiple times, and I pick on the very first symbol in the sequence. Just as a warm-up, if n is 1, if I just have one color, what can I do? Write it just once, so lambda of 1 is 1. With one color, you can just write, which is, by the way, less than 2 times 1 minus 1 minus 1, right? It's lambda of 1 works is no longer than this number. Maybe I need to start with 2. If you have two symbols, what's the longest sequence that you can write? 2 symbols, just to see that we are on the same page. Two symbols, x and y. I can write x, y, write x again, and I cannot write y again. So in this case, n equals 2, and then this function works a lambda of 2 based on our claim should be less or equal than 2 times 2 minus 1. I think that I can now find that this is 3, which is exactly about tight. So for n equal 2, correct. And from now on, I'm going to prove it by induction. I'll assume that for all the sequences that contains less than n symbols and colors, the maximum length when I'm using n minus 1 colors is 2 n minus 1 minus 1. And now I want to prove that when I have n colors, the maximum length would be 2 times n minus 1. So kind of a warm-up. Let's pick the first symbol. Let's assume that the first symbol is A in the sequence. Easy case. If A doesn't appear anywhere else in the sequence, like the case over here, A doesn't appear anywhere else, then let's get rid of it. Now I have a sequence that has n minus 1 colors, n minus 1 symbols. So I can use by induction hypothesis. The length of everything over here was 2 times n minus 1 minus 1, that is 2n minus 3. And I'm adding to it the A at the end. It still all holds. It's still less than 2n minus 1. Make sense? I remove the A, claim that my sequence has n minus 1 elements. Again, I'm under the assumption that A appeared only at the beginning. That's an easy case. Delete the A, see what the maximum length that you can get by induction, and then put the A back. And claim that the answer, the maximum length, is just what it was before, that was less than 2n minus 2, plus the A that you just put back. OK, what are we doing if A appears multiple times? But remember, why did I pick A? Because it was the first element in my sequence. So here is my sequence. A appeared once here, once here, once here, and once here, and possibly many more times. And what A is doing right now is that it partitioned S, or it breaks S into A, then a bunch of characters, then A again, a bunch of characters, A again, a bunch of characters. But could I have C here and C appears here as well? No, because if I have C here and C here, then I have A, C, which we forbid. Or in general, the characters that appears in this subsequence, I'll call this subsequence S1, these characters are different than the characters that appears here, and for the same reason they are all different than the characters that appears here. This set of characters is different than this set of characters is different than this set of characters. Okay, so here is S1 that contains BCF, S2 that contains these guys, and S3 GZW. Just as an example, and remember I don't have the same character that appears again, so what can I say about the length of this subsequence? S1, it's by itself, it's a DS sequence. So its length is lambda, 2n minus 1, but of 3, because there are 3 characters. Same here, 4 characters here. Same here, 3 characters here. And what's important is, if I think about how many characters do I have here, let's call it N1, 3 guys over here, 4 guys over here, and 2 will be 4. These 4 guys, these 3 guys, and 3. Because they are disjoint, then N1 plus N2 plus N3 plus the A that I forgot will make N different characters and different letters. Putting the E aside, you're getting that N1 plus N2 plus N3 is N minus 1. Now, where do I use the fact that it is DS sequence? I used it by saying that if N1 is a number of characters over here, N2 is a number of characters over here, since there are this, and N3 are the number of characters over here, since I don't have the same characters that appear here and here, or here and here, or here and here, then N1 plus N2 plus N3 is at most N1 minus 1. Without the DS sequence, I could have ABC over here, ABC over here, ABC over here, and N1 plus N2 plus N3 could have been any number you wish to put there. Okay, so therefore, what is lambda n? The maximum length of this creature. I'll pay 1 for the first one over here, plus maximum length when I'm using N1 characters, plus 1 for this A, plus lambda of N2 plus 1, plus lambda of N3 plus 1. This plus 1, this plus 1, this plus 1 are this A, and this A. And the first A is on us. Nobody pays for it. But now we can play the induction trick. I don't know what is N1, nor what is N2, what is N3, but I know that they are summing up to N minus 1. And the length, maximum length of lambda of N1, since there is only N1 characters, is 2N1 minus 1 plus 1. At most, for lambda N2, 2N2 minus 1, 2N3 minus 1. Plus the plus 1s. Why did I write it with so many blanks? Because here the 1 that the A paid for killed this one. this A is this one, but is deleted by the -1 over here. This A is killed by this -1. And the first A nobody pays for. What do we have to do? To sum up n1 plus n2 plus n3, maybe more ni's, maybe I have more subsequences, to then, since there are 2 in front of each one of them, it's just 2 times n1 plus n2 plus n3, which is, what did we say? This is n minus 1, 2 times n minus 1, plus 1 that we paid for the first A. We are all in business, right? It's 2n minus 2 plus 1, making 2n minus 1. Great. Q combinatorics, what does it have to do with anything that we discussed in the course so far? Yeah. Bugs?
That 1 that you put on the end, the plus 1, that came from the fact that there was an A at the end, right? What if the A doesn't come at the end? What if it's just
Even better. Then it's shorter. That's a maximum length that I can do. I cannot put 2 A's over here. But I charge every A to the sequence that just came before it. And the first A, I have no sequence to charge it to.
this is just the worst thing?
Yeah. Good. Now we have a theorem about symbols and what does it do? What does it have to do with this course? So I have a set of lines. Somebody gave me a set of lines, and I want to create a map that these lines define. We have various ways to think about the map that these maps define. If you are using the doubly connected edge list, good time to remind yourself what is DCL. You know, half edges, every half edge is a twin half edge. It goes to the opposite direction. Every edge know what its origin. Every edge know to which face it belongs to. It doesn't have to be a DCL, but I want to know what is the arrangement, which in particular implies, give me a list of the faces, a list of the vertices, intersection of 2 lines, the list of the edges, edge, the piece of the line between 2 vertices, and so on. And if you're kind enough, even represent it in some meaningful order, that I can go from one vertex to the next one, until I'm done with the line. Or, what will be more useful, that I can go along all the edges in the face and see the edges on a face in an order. Okay, and I want to build calligraphic the arrangement of these lines. We call it such a structure, arrangement of lines. The map with all the faces and square faces, right? And square vertices, if every 2 lines appear, general position, if every 2 lines meet, and square vertices, and choose to be precise. And square edges, why and square edges? Because think about one of the lines. Here's one of the lines, L, and think about its intersections with n minus 1 other lines, then you'll find n minus 1 vertices. Along this line, so the number of edges along this line is exactly n. Right, that's why altogether you have n squared time algorithm. Sorry, this is why the complexity of this arrangement is n squared. The number of items that you need to store. And again, the 2 primitives that I'd like to have is go along a line and visit all the vertices across this line, or pick a face and walk along the edges of this face. How do you build such an arrangement? Well, I was telling you on and on about algorithms that approximation tricks make a huge difference in the running time between exponential versus almost linear that appeared in the approximated Voronoi diagram in the well-separated pair decomposition. That's not one of these examples. In terms of running time, I'm not really doing great things over here. You all know, I hope, how to do computing the arrangement using line sweep. Think about each line as a very long segment. Line sweep takes how much time? N log n plus the number of events times log n. Number of events, number of crossing is n squared, so it's n squared log n. And I want to show you an algorithm that will run in linear in n squared time. So I'm just improving by log. But it's really the aesthetic and the recycling of big ideas over here that I'm trying to show more than the improvement on the running time. That's just to shave a log would not worth the effort. OK, so I want to build this arrangement. And when I'm building this arrangement, I'm going to add the lines one by one. I'm going to add the lines one by one, not in any particular order. That's not randomized algorithms. We have seen multiple examples of randomized algorithms where the order change. Not in this case. Pick any order you want. At each moment, you have the arrangement, the build of all the lines, excluding the red one. And now I'm adding the red one. And how do I add one line? So it's really important to avoid any sophisticated data structure, any binary search. None of the above. Really, really basic operations. How do I add this line, the red line? So I first need to find somehow about a point somewhere very much to the left, which face is this point on the line. Way at minus infinity is. It's easy to do. It's kind of, you're checking there are only n faces that maps to infinity. You can draw a line through it. It's easy to find the starting point and which face contains it. I'll leave it to you to figure out. What am I doing now? I'm asking where this starting point is in one of the faces. I know which face it is, and I know what are the edges that are defined this face. I find the edge that intersect by this line. Again, in the face that it started from. This edge has a 3.5 edge on the next face, right here. I'm going to check each one of the edges of the next face to find where the exit point of this line, which is the entry point to the next face. Check all the edges of the next face until you'll find the exit point, and so on. Trace the line from one face to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and until it gets to plus infinity. That's the whole algorithm. Every face that the line enters, check at which edge the line exit. Assume general position, so it will be an edge and not a vertex. And this edge knows what is the next face that the lines enter. If you remember half edges, each half edge knows what is a face to its left, and the 3.5 edge will know the other side of the same edge. So that sounds like unbelievably inefficient algorithm, because how many edges, what is the maximum number of edges that I can have in one face? How many edges can I have in one face? It could be n. Right? Could be that all the lines generate one face. So if now I realized that my new line L happens to enter to this face, I'm going to check this segment. Hey, do you intersect L, E1? Do you intersect L, E2? Do you intersect L, E3? Do you intersect L? Maybe the answer is yes over here. And E3 will say, yeah, finally, I got the intersection point. But if I would go in the opposite direction, I will have to visit many edges, possibly n edges. OK. So one face can be quite complicated. could have n edges. In the throughout its life, when L intersect everybody, now L is in the wrong direction, but when L intersect everybody, it intersect n minus 1 faces. Possibly all of them are complicated. All of them has linear time. So does it mean that to add one line, I'll have to invest n time? Again, what's my pessimistic thought is that L intersect n minus 1 lines, and each face that it visits could have up to n edges. So why wouldn't it take n squared time to add one line and n cubed time to build the whole arrangement? So that's a result that is waiting for us from now. By the way, that material appeared in the 4M textbook, Mark Overmars, Mark van Creveld, Mark de Berg, Mark Overmars, Mark van Creveld, and myself. That's how the fourth author described this book, Otfried. But also known as a Dutch book. So I'm going to give a different proof of the zone theorem, but beside it, this whole chapter appears. The chapter about the zone theorem and its application and building the arrangement appears there if you're losing me. Okay. So what is a zone of a curve, the zone of the line? So the zone of a line L consists of all the edges and faces and vertices that some point of L could see. Quick example before we are losing it completely. Here is L in red. Here is a vertex P. And no point of L sees P. Sees meaning that the segment between them is not occluded by any other line. If I have a line that occludes them, then L, at least this point of L, does not see P. So what about Q over here? Well, this point of L does not see Q because this segment crosses this line. But if I'll stand right here, then I do see Q. Nobody occludes it. Okay, so the zone of L in this case will be everything here. Some faces might go to infinity. That's absolutely fine. Will consist of this part, will consist of this part, will consist of this face that goes to infinity, and so on. So I'm going to count in the zone everything that is exposed to L at some point of L. Vertices, edges, that you can, if you can pick a feature, point or edge or face, and slide it so that it intersects with L and you don't hit any other line before, it means that it's in the zone. Which is so this is a zone of L, and thought it's cute combinatorics and useful combinatorics, so it's worth talking about it. So the zone theorem, in this case, will say that for any line L in an arrangement of lines, the zone of L has linear complexity, has order n vertices, edges, faces, and so on. Let's prove it. Why for every line in an arrangement of n and minus 1 lines, the zone has linear complexity? First attempt would say a line can contribute one edge to the zone. A line can contribute one edge to the zone. That's a very cool attempt. It's just absolutely wrong because the same line can contribute several edges. Here is a zone of the red line for convenience without limitation of generality. The red line, the one that I'm just adding, I'll put it on horizontally. And I'll actually bound the complexity only of the zone, but only for points that are above the red line. And you'll have to multiply whatever the result that we are getting. You'll have to remember that the same thing happens also below the line. OK, so our first attempt was to argue that one line only contributes one edge to the zone. But it's obviously false. Look at L1. L1 contributes one edge here to the zone and one edge here. I didn't draw the other lines, but remember, every such polygon is one of the faces that other lines are drawing. There is plenty of other lines that defines all the edges. OK, so what's my next tool in the artillery to prove linear bound? Well, I cannot prove that it's that every line contributes only once. So what I'll do is I'm thinking about L, and L goes from left to right, and L crosses a bunch of faces. And for each one of the faces, I'm going to go over all the edges and write what is a line that defines this edge. Again, I'm going to go along each face and write down all the lines that define this face. But I mean, I'm going to write what the edge is, but also what the lines. And how can I prove that the zone has linear complexity? I'll try to convince you that this set of lines that we are going to generate will be a Davenport-Schinzel sequence, no ABAB. How could it be? Doesn't L1 appears multiple times? Yeah, it appears multiple times. But what happened with the next edge, L4? Well, I just had a vertex of L4, meaning that right after this vertex, L4 is below L1. That is, trying to get to L1 from the red point, I'll be able to do eventually, after a while, but for a while, L4 disturbs me. That is, I will not be able to generate another edge on L1 until I get rid of L4. So in my sequence, I'll write L1. For E3, I'll write L1. Then I'll write L4, corresponds to this edge. But I will not be able to write L4 again until this line vanishes. In particular, this line will not go back to hunt me after I see the next edge of L4. The same theorem of argument will tell me, what about the line L6 going up? You see it once. Maybe you saw it a few times again, but it ended, or eventually it crossed, because you saw L1. So you'll never see L6 again. L1 will appear. Or you will see L6 again in the right time, but then L4 needs to end before. Either way, you will not be able to generate ABAB. A bit hand-waving, but it's close enough. that you'll believe me. That is, let's try to memorize, to summarize it. If I've seen Li and I stopped, or there is a vertex that caused because I've seen Lj, then it could be that Lj will appear several times, Lj, Lj, Lj. But once I see Li once again, once I see Li once again, it's because Lj is out of the game, never to be seen again. So no AB, meaning that the maximum length for n-1 sequences, which is exactly the zone theorem, will say the number of edges, which is also the number of vertices, is to n-3. That was above L, and similarly the same number below L. So linear. So going back one slide, constructing our arrangement, that all the zone of the red line, that is all the edges that I might check to see for intersection with a new guy, the number of such edges is order n. Order n work per line, summing up for all the n lines, you are getting it to n squared. Okay, everybody is good with this point? Everybody see how it works? And good. So let's see applications. One application you have seen already when I ask you to find the shortest path of a robot. How do you find the shortest path of a robot? You compute the Minkowski sum of the robot with each one of the obstacles. And then if you just need to find you need to find a path, then you can do trapezoidal decomposition, and you're done. Trapezoidal decomposition of the free space, find the path connectivity between the trapezoids, and you're done, just a line sweep. But if I insist on the shortest path, how do you solve it? I have a set of obstacles, and I'm looking for the shortest path. What would be my first step? People? Set of segments. Obstacles, segments, whatever. You have a point S. We have a point T. Find for me the shortest path from S to T. I need to find the visibility graph, and to find the visibility graph, I have to do the algorithm that we are arguing about, that we discussed about the visibility graph was. Let's remind everybody, what is a visibility graph? The vertices are all the endpoints, P1, Q1, P2, Q2, P3, Q3. So V is just the sets of the Pi and all the sets of the Qj, all the endpoints. And Pi, Pj, or let's call them Vi, Vj, any 2 points. Vi, Vj is in the visibility graph if they see each other. That is, the segment between them does not cross any of the obstacles. that was for segments. The same thing you're doing for a robot that is not a point. You just need to compute the visibility, the Minkowski sum of the robot with each one of the obstacles before that. And then you're still finding the visibility graph. Great. How much time does it take to compute the visibility graph if I have n segments? Well, one algorithm was pick the point. I want to ask what are the points that P2 sees. And now I'm doing angular sweep. Okay. Sweeping a line, probably counterclockwise or clockwise, and check events. Every time that I see one of the vertices in some angle, I registered it as an event, and then I check, is this other vertex that caused the event, do P1 actually sees it, or is there some segment in between, just by checking the status. Now, how do I know what are these events? One option was sort all the endpoints by angular sort, which is fine. Nothing wrong with this, except that you can do it a bit faster now when you know about the zone theorem. In the homework, I asked you how to do it when I told you that there is such an algorithm. Right? If I write what happens to the lines that go through P2, let's look at the lines that go through P2 in the dual. No, not the lines that go through P2, sorry. Let's look at P2 star in the dual plane. Here is P2, where I'm doing my angular sweep from. P2 became a line. P2 star, it's a line. Now, which letter is this? P3 also became a line. Q2, I'm not sure that I'm drawing them in the right order. Q2 also became a line. Now, I'm going to do the angular sweep. And I'll sweep not with a ray, but with a line. It doesn't matter. I'll sweep with a line, not with a ray. What does this line, the sweeping line, it's going to rotate. But when I freeze it for a moment, it became a point. And no matter what is its angle, since this line is on the vertex P3, then the dual of this wooden line, which is a point, must lie on the line which is P, so it's P2 star. Which is P2 star. This line that I just drew is somewhere on P2 star. What happened? It's a point on this line. And once I rotate my line in the angular sweep, then at some point it hits Q3. How do I know that it hits Q3? Because the point that I'm over also will be on Q3 dual, will be exactly at the other point. So what do I actually need? What took n log n from the insertion to know at which order they are? And the sorting you can just do based on, well, that's the order that they appear in the arrangement. So the order by which you see the other event is just the order by which you meet other lines out there. OK. Let's see more applications. One of the cutest one will be, I have a set of points. Oh, with time. I have a set of points. And I want to find I don't know why. Clustering, not argue that it's absolutely crucial application, but it's put everything together. Have a set of points, P1, P2, P3, P4, and each three of them defines a triangle. Each three vertices defines a triangle. And I want to find the triangle with the smallest area. Out of all the n-cube triangles that I drew over there, find for me, please, the triangle that has the smallest area. So I found it very cute how I'm going to do it. So let's assume that this triangle, what's going on? So let's assume that this triangle is defined by P1, P2, and one other point that I still need to decide. So the smallest triangle will be defined by P1, P2, Pi, Pj in the slides, and one other point out there. Now, let's meditate, for example, about Pj over here. So what will be the area of the triangle? It's, I mean, I know that you all know how to compute the area of triangle, but it's important that I'll use the formula in the one way, since there are more than one way. I want to be quite accurate about it. So the area of this triangle will be the length of the base, called it B, the length of the base, times what? Draw a line through P1 and P2, and if Pj is a third vertex, then the length of the area of this triangle would be, I think that I forgot half over there, the length of this triangle would be the distance from Pj to the line that contains this edge. I mean, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Sometimes you have a more nicely looking triangles, and you just take the height of the triangle with respect to the base only. But even if the height or the shorter, the closest point is not on the base itself, doesn't matter. It's still the area of this triangle is h times the base times half. But everything here will be times half, so I wouldn't mention it. Everybody okay with me? Did I do bugs so far? Okay. So where this point is exactly doesn't matter. Don't care, as long as P1 and P2 are, that will be the base of the triangle. For a while, I don't change my opinion about P1 and P2. That will be the base. But now there is various other points. Pi, Pj, Pk, Pl, lots of other points. And I want to argue something about this triangle. So I want to argue that if I just consider the third vertex, P1, P2, I don't change my mind. Where is the third vertex? Let's say that the third vertex is one of the points here which are above the line. In the slide, I called it L of P1, P2. If the third vertex is somewhere above this line, then which one of all these points will it be? All I need to do is slide the line without changing its orientation. Slide this line until you hit the first point. Right? Until you hit the first point. Slide the line again without changing its orientation until you hit the first point. Why? because if here is one copy of the line, translated copy of the line has the same slope, so that's a height. Here's another copy of the line, yet with the same slope. But now this line goes through PL, then to get to PI, it will be the base that is common to both. Do I have green? It will be the height times the base. Doesn't matter where PI is. What's the height of what is the area of the triangle that I defined to PL over here? It will be this height, again, the distance to the same line. But now, because I shift the line parallel to itself, the distance to this line is larger. It's not the first point that I hit. Everybody convinced that the red triangle that you barely seen is smaller in area than the green triangle that you also barely see? Red has smaller area than the green if age is smaller than h prime, then the area of the triangle P1, P2, Pj is smaller than the area of the triangle P1, P2, and PL. People, make sense? So once I decided about the base of the triangle, which I don't, I'm just going to try a lot of bases, but once I decided about the base of the triangle, I have very little freedom to choose what are the third points that will give me the smallest triangle. It will say, take this line and move all the way up until you hit somebody, and take this line and move it parallel to itself until all the way down until you hit somebody. And the first point that you hit from below, the first point that you hit from above, these are the only candidates for the smallest triangle that are defined by P1 and P2. Cool. So now I will take all the points. It would be nice to have mark. Now we'll take all my points and transfer them to the dual. And here is P1 star, and here is P2 star. The P1 and P2 that you see on the other side of the board. Where is what is the dual of the line that go through P1 and P2? The dual of the line L P1, P2. Where do you see it in the dual plane? Not too hard.
The intersection of P1.
This is L of P1, P2 star. Now, to remind you, how do I shift the line, or the formula of the dual? If I write this line as y equals ax plus b, then a and minus b will be the point which is the dual of this line. But when I'm shifting this line, what do? I increase b. A would be the same, and B, if here is the point L of P1, P2 star, the dual of this line. This is the point that I'm doing it. And now I'm starting to shift the line without changing its orientation. A stays the same. The coordinates of this point, by the way, is, as we said, A and minus B. And now I start to increase B. So instead of writing B, I'll write B plus 1, or B plus 2, or B plus 3. And we'll just ignore it and it will go away. As I'm starting to increase B, this line in the primal is moved parallel to itself. And what happened to my point? My point has the same A, sorry, correction, has the same A, that is the x coordinate is the same, but it goes upward. So the point above it will be A and minus B plus 1. The point above it will be A and minus B plus 2, and so on. So from this point, I'm shooting upward, yeah?
Why wouldn't it go down? Like if your B is increasing, then wouldn't negative B go
If I increase, yeah, stand corrected. Yeah, that's why, yeah, originally I thought that it's down. But yeah, stand corrected, it's going downward. And when I move the line downward, it's not very crucial, but this point moves vertically. If my line going upward, then this point going downward. But I also have to choose, see how nice I'm getting out from this corner? That it was not a bug, it was a feature. Now when I'm moving the line downward, then I'm moving the dual of this point upward. Back to the dual. Here is my point. When should I stop this process of moving the line upward? The moment that I hit the first point. What happened in the dual? I'll go upward here. I'll cheat again. I'll go upward until when the dual of this point is on one of the line, P, J prime. It means that the translated line is just touched its first point, P, J. So let's summarize. What's the problem in general? I don't know that P1 and P2 were the correct pair that describes the smallest triangle. So what I'm going to do is to check every triple of vertices, but every triple of vertices limited to what? That this shifting process for Pi, Pj will hit one of the other points, which in the dual plane is boiled down to pick every vertex of the arrangement, pick every vertex of the arrangement, which arrangement takes a point and compute their dual, and compute the whole arrangement, vertices, edges, yada, yada. Keep every vertex, and from this vertex, ask who is the line which is vertically above me. Now, we studied various data structures to find in convex hull who is above you, yada, yada, but here you are not doing anything clever at all. Just check, go among the face and check edge, vertices. Remember, we have the caliper problem in homework 1. You're checking for every edge, every vertex, who is the edge vertically above it, who is the edge vertically below it. And because of the zone, you can do it all in time, which is proportional to how many pair of edges do you have that sees each other? Or how many vertex face do you have? You're down to the question of in the arrangement that is formed by P1 star, P2 star, the dual, the Pn star, how many pairs VE are there such that V sees E, because they should be in the same phase, nothing occludes them, and E is vertically above or below V. Because that's a pair that I care for, but actually, let's even remove this condition. It's just a way to check even a subset and see only the pairs of vertex edge that you care for. But let's ask how many pairs of vertices edges do I have altogether that see each other? Well, we already know it. This edge lies, this edge belongs to one of the lines. This edge belongs to one of the lines. How many vertices the line that contains L sees? Linear. Summing it up for all the lines in the arrangement, you'll get n squared. So even without this condition, the answer will be order n squared, and just check all of them exhaustively. And it's guaranteed that one of these triples corresponds to the smallest area triangle. Cute? So in n squared, you can find this triangle. OK, here is one more application that 3 minutes will be enough. So we have a set of obstacles and each obstacle has a name. That's an obstacle in the sense of the free space. That's where my robot cannot move. Remember, we took every obstacle. We actually expanded it by the Minkowski sum. And we got these flattened obstacles that now start to intersect. And now we have a face of the free space. Meaning that my robot can move somewhere here. Maybe the robot is encapsulated in this face, so it cannot reach to any other point. But at least it has some freedom when my robot is here without hitting any obstacle. What's the complexity of this face? Well, what was the main property that we used when we bound the complexity? Remember how it's called? There was one, we proved that if the objects are convex and disjoint, if the obstacles are disjoint, here is my obstacles, and they are convex, and the robot is convex as well, then the robot Minkowski sum with each of the objects definitely can intersect happily, but they are, looking for a word, pseudo disks, right? They have only 2 intersection points. When you fatten them, they have only 2 intersection points. Let's walk along the free space. See, I'm walking on one obstacle, called it S1. Now I'm walking on another obstacle, S2. See the green guy, S3. Go back to S2. See another green, S4. But what cannot happen if I see S4 once over here? Remember, I saw S3. I saw S3, and I see S3 once again. But the only way that this can happen is that they are not pseudo-disk. They have 4 intersection points. If what happens when I'm walking right here is S2, S3, S2, S3 once again. It's not a DS sequence with only 4 alternation. It's not. But you cannot have, if there are pseudo-disk, AB, AB. And remind yourself before the midterm what is pseudo-disk, but that cannot happen. That take one object and remove it, and it breaks the other object from 2 pieces. So it's really, really cool, because now it means that actually the complexity of the free space is 2n minus 1, which means that if you're using the line sweep, how many events do you have? 2n minus 1 times, if you're doing divide and conquer log, so now you can compute the free space really fast. So it's all putting together really elegantly, to my taste. And it also helps us, I'll tell you more on Thursday about how we used it to provide privacy by putting jammers that disturbs people to listen to communication, and somehow it disturbs the number of jammers that we have to use followed the very same sequence. So that would be for Thursday, and that's how we provided privacy. Good. Thanks, everybody.